In this section, we're going to talk about place value, names for numbers, and reading tables. And this video specifically, we're just going to talk about place value. So that's topic one, intro to place value. Before we get into what place value is, let's do a couple of definitions that might be helpful. So the first definition is fairly obvious, but we want to go ahead and put it out there anyway. In math, digits are symbols that represent numerical values and are used to form numbers. So we have 10 single digits. They are 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9. Okay. And those 10 digits make up all other numbers. Okay. So again, fairly obvious, but it's worth throwing it out there as a reminder. Now, the second two, or the second and third definitions that we want to look at, talk about different sets of numbers. So in math, we have different sets of numbers. And for this worksheet, we're going to focus on really just two of those sets. So the first set of numbers that we generally talk about are the natural numbers. Now, the natural numbers are also called the counting numbers. And the reason for this is the natural numbers start at one and then increase by one. So imagine you have a stack of dollar bills. How would you count that set of dollar bills? Where you would start at one, and then you would go to two, and then you would go to three. Each new digit is one more than the last. So you start at one and you increment or increase by one. So symbolically speaking, this would be the set of natural numbers, or called the counting numbers, because the natural numbers represent how we count things. Okay. Now, there needs to be a way to represent nothing. Okay. If you notice, the natural numbers don't include zero, but we need zero. We need a way to represent nothing. We also need a way to represent this digit right here. So we have those 10 single digits. Well, one of them happens to be zero. So that brings us to the whole numbers. The whole numbers start at zero and then increment one. So it's basically the counting numbers, or the natural numbers, with the inclusion of zero. So we have our whole numbers, which again are the counting numbers, but including zero. And if we want to look at it symbolically, we have this right here. So notice both of these sets of numbers, we have them in curly braces. We have the starting point. So one for the natural numbers, zero for the whole numbers. We show a comma and then we increment by one, and then we show a comma and then we increment by one. And then we show, in this case, or in both of these cases, we have 3 or 4 numbers listed. And then we have a comma and a series of 3 dots. That series of 3 dots right there is called an ellipsis. And it just means, hey, keep this pattern going. So for the natural numbers, sure, we start at 1 and then we go to 2 and then we go to 3. And we could write out natural numbers from now until the end of the semester and never reach the end of the natural numbers. So we need a way to represent, hey, this goes on forever and ever. This pattern continues. That's what that series of 3 dots does. Okay? Now that brings us to the definitions that we're really going to focus on in this video. We have the definition for place value and the definition for period. Okay, so the location of each digit in a number is called its place value. So if you had some arbitrary number, let's say we had the number 215, each of those 3 digits has a very specific location that doesn't change. The name of that location is called the place value, and we have a chart that we'll look at in just a moment. Okay. Now, remember, when just in life in general, when you're writing out larger numbers, every group of 3 digits is separated by a comma. Well, that group of 3 digits is called a period. You start at the right-hand side of the number and you move left by 3s. Okay. So we have a period. It's each group of 3 digits in a number. Again, you have to start at the end of the number, so the right-hand side of the number, and then work your way to the left. Okay, now the following table is just a very typical place value chart. So it shows you the place value up to the trillions, and it also includes the name of the period. Okay, so let's look at this table right here, or this chart. So what I want you to notice is right here, let me change that. So right here we have the names of the different periods. So you can see each group of 3 digits has a name. So the first 3 digits are just the ones period. Then we go to the thousands period. Then we go to the millions period. Then the billions period. And then the trillions period. And we could keep going, but luckily we're not going to be dealing with super large numbers in this class at all. So you don't have to worry about that. But the name of the period is really important when you go to write out the number in words. Okay, so don't ignore that. Now, as for the place value, starting at the right-hand side, we have the first digit is always in the ones place. The second digit is always in the tens place. The third digit is always in the hundreds place. Okay? And then we get into the thousands period. Now, the first digit in the thousands period is the thousands place. And then we have the 10,000s place. And then we have the hundred thousands place, and you'll start to see a pattern emerge. Once we get to the millions period, we have the millions, we have the 10 millions, and then we have the 100 millions, okay? And then we have the billions, the 10 billions, the 100 billions, okay? And then finally, we have the trillions, the 10 trillions, and the 100 trillions. And we could keep this going. Again, we're not going to be dealing with massively large numbers in this class, but what I want you to understand is the pattern that emerges here. Each period has a very similar pattern, okay? So it is worth memorizing place value of numbers. I would say memorize up through maybe the billions place. That's about as big as we're going to really work with this semester. Most math classes, you're going to be dealing with numbers in the thousands, maybe the millions, but you could certainly have those big numbers, okay? So make sure you review and practice place value, okay? So let's look at our first example here. So example 1 says, answer the following questions about place value, okay? So for part A, it says, list the place value of each digit in the number 3,759. So remember, you start at the right and you work your way left when it comes to place value. So looking at the 9, that is in the ones place. And you can kind of compare that to this chart we have up here. Let me move my screen a little bit. The next digit from the right heading left is the 5. The 5 is in the tens place. Next up, we have 7. 7 is ones, tens, hundreds place. Every digit that's in that third spot is always in the hundreds place. And then finally, for this number, the last digit we're going to look at is the 4th digit starting from the right, and every number that's in that 4th spot from the right is in the thousands place. All right. So let's look at part B. Part B says, what is the place value of the 7 in the following number, which is 172,690,034,551. So what digit, or what is the place value of this 7 digit? All right, so starting from the right and heading to the left, we have the ones, tens, hundreds, thousands, 10,000s, 100,000s, millions, 10 millions, 100 millions, billions, and then that makes this the 10 billions place. And if we start from the right and count, we went 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. We're in that 11th spot from the right heading left. Every number that's in the 11th spot, no matter what the number is, that's going to be the 10 billions place. All right, part C, whoops. Hang tight. So part C right here says, what is the place value of the 9 in 478,943,000? Well, starting from the right and moving left, we have ones, tens, hundreds, thousands, 10,000s, 100,000s. And I think I just marked that one out, but that's the digit we're interested in, is that 1 in the 100,000s spot. So again, starting from the right, it's ones, tens, hundreds, thousands, 10,000s, and finally the 9 is in the 100,000s place. I have a dog at home, so you probably hear her in the background. She wants me to play fetch. All right, finally for part D, it says, what is the name of the period that starts with the 6 in the following number? So notice where the 6 is. We have this group of 3 digits. Well, the first period is the ones period. The third period is the millions period. But the one we're interested in is this one right here, which is the thousands period. And you can go back to this chart. Let me scroll up so you can see the chart. At the top of the chart, remember, it lists the period. So when we're in that second group of 3 digits, that's the thousands period. Okay, so study this chart, understand the pattern that happens. Know that when we're reading numbers, when we're talking place value of numbers, we start at the far right and head towards the left. That's how you would go through the numbers in this table. That's the easiest way to memorize the place value. And also don't sleep on the period, okay? Because the name of the period does come up when we start writing out numbers in words, okay?